I'm Casey, and welcome to Cornucopia Orchards. Today we're going to be going over one of my favorite skills in gardening, which is propagating plants from branch cuttings. It is a really easy skill, and it makes it cheap to multiply your plants, which is really important when you're farmsteading because oftentimes you're working on a very limited budget. It is also a long-term investment because your plants are going to be very, very tiny for a long time, but it's worth it in the end. So what is propagating from a cutting? Basically what you're doing is you're taking a part of an existing plant, usually a branch, and you're putting it in soil in order to help it grow roots from that branch. So you cut off a piece and you grow a new plant from it. So the method that I'm going to be going over today is cutting greenwood and rooting it in soil, and also bending down a branch and rooting it in soil. And both of these methods are super simple and very successful. You have to be aware of propagation law while you're learning to do this. Basically, you can't propagate a plant that's under patent or that is legal for propagation in your state. So look up your state's propagation law, look up the plant that you're thinking of doing, and make sure you're not breaking any of those rules. A lot of the times, as long as you're propagating very old varieties and wild varieties, you're going to be good to go, but just make sure. So today we're going to be covering the materials that you need to do this and the techniques and a couple of the different methods. So there are three different methods that you can use to root plants. The first one is you can take a greenwood cutting, taking the new wood from a plant and cutting it off and putting it in the soil. You can root it in water. You take the greenwood and you just put it in a jar. And then the other one is you can bend a live part of the plant down. That's not technically a cutting, but it does work really well. Say if you have a plant on your own property that you want to propagate, it's very easy just to bend down a branch. I have not had a whole lot of luck with rooting things in water. I know it can be done. I've seen it done especially with geraniums, but I personally have not had any luck. So what I'm going to go over in this video is rooting into soil. So my preferred method of cutting is to take greenwood and put it in soil. So when you take the greenwood and put it in soil, you're essentially just cutting a branch and putting it in the dirt. I've had great luck with this. This is something that I learned how to do from family members, my mother-in-law and my aunt, and it's worked for quite a few things. It's also failed quite a bit. So one of the things that you have to be aware of is that you're going to see most of your cuttings die, but that's okay because some of them will live and then you'll have more. So this is an elderberry, and I did not actually think that it was going to work. It surprised me. All of my cuttings took. And so what it looks like when you have a successful cutting is you begin to see new growth at the top. And see right down there, you can see some. That means it has fully rooted. This is a new plant now. It has a good root system that's allowing it to put on growth. So when you're starting seeds, you want a nice loose potting soil. What we use is just the potting mix from our local nursery, and so far it's worked great. Other things that you can use would be a seed starting mix. Works really well for rooting things because it has a lot of moisture holding properties, and so when you water it, it tends to keep the cutting very evenly moist. Whereas with a potting soil, a lot of times it'll drain through really quickly. So the seed starting mix can actually be better. The other thing that you can use is vermiculite. If you mix a little bit of vermiculite in with whatever soil you're using, or if you just have really great soil, you can just do it in your native soil. But things like vermiculite and peat do help keeping the moisture level even, and so you might lose fewer of your cuttings. All right, so when you take your cutting, what you're looking for is the green wood. Now the green wood is the new shoot on the plant. I'm going to choose this one here because it's in the middle. It won't show too much, and I'm going to cut down 5 or 6 inches, and then this is what we have left. So then we snap off the leaves down here because they're big and it's hard for the shoot to support them. Like that. And just leave enough to where the plant has something to work with, and this is what we're going to put in the soil. All right, so it's as easy as we just got this pot filled with nice potting soil, and you stick it in the pot as deep as you feel like it can go easily. Right there, it's very loose soil. Tamp it down, and then we'll water it in real nice. And then sometimes I like to come back and take another cutting to put in the same pot. So I'm going to come right here. The deer got to this plant, and so it's a great plant to use for cuttings because it's already lost a lot of its good structure. So we just take off the leaves on the sides. And we're essentially damaging the plant, and so it's going to try and make the most of the damage that we inflicted. And so this is a nice live shoot, and we just put it in next to its friend. I don't know why, but I've had more luck rooting things when they have friends. I don't know if there's something that's released into the soil or what, but I've had more luck putting 2 to 3 starts in a pot than just putting a single start in a pot. Third one here. Take off the leaves. Put it. And then I'm actually going to take off this last big leaf too. I think supporting big leaves is harder for the start. We'll put that right there, and then we'll water it in, and the Rose of Sharon is ready to go, and we'll see how it works. All right, so once you have your cuttings in the soil, the most important thing is to keep them moist, very moist, and keep them protected from very harsh temperatures. So protect them from freezing and protect them from too much sunlight. Starts that you're trying to root, they like indirect sun the best. So I tend to keep mine under an umbrella because it allows them to get light but not be cooked. They're very sensitive to direct sunlight. So one of the easiest methods of propagating a plant is to bend down a part of a plant into soil and place something heavy on top of it so that the plant believes that it needs to put down roots there. So it's very easy. You just take a part of the plant, you bend it down, you find a part with like a leaf or some other type of nodule, you put it into the soil, and that spot there will grow a root. So what I've done here is I've taken this part of the plant, I've curved it down very gently, found this Y here, and you can actually already see it starting to put down roots. And I've put a rock on top of it, and then I just keep it moist. And eventually, over time, you want to give it a little while, that will actually become a section with roots, and then you'll cut it from the parent plant, and you can dig that other plant up. Again, I'd give it a little while, and transport it to a new spot. One of the main benefits of this is that it still gets nutrients from the parent plant, so you're not as likely to lose your start. So if you have a plant that's on your own property, like this honeysuckle that you want to multiply, it's very easy to do it this way rather than taking a whole bunch of cuttings, having to use a pot, get potting soil. This is the much less work intensive and cheaper way to do it. It tends to work best with plants that have flexible stems. So in other words, you're not really going to want to do this with a tree, but vines or bushy plants that have starts like lilacs will oftentimes push up a new green wood from the base. Very easy to just bend that over, put a rock on it, and pretty soon you've got. So obviously one of the more popular methods of propagating for fruit trees specifically, which is of interest on a farmstead because they're so important, is to graft onto a rootstock, because the rootstock will give you the properties that you need in your tree: its size, its hardiness, its disease resistance. So, but grafting is a very difficult process, and it takes some time to learn. I tried grafting this year with some apples, and it failed totally. But I will try again next year, and in the meantime, rooting from cuttings is going to give me a way to mitigate my financial losses because I purchased some rootstock. So the first thing that I did is I went through my failed grafts, and I picked any of the part of the plant that I wanted to graft onto the grafting plant, and I tried to find one that was still marginally green, and I had success with one of them. So this one was the very, very tippy top of the cutting that I had taken, and it actually rooted. I stuck it in the dirt, and we had really great rooting weather this spring. It was mild, it was moist, and it actually took. So this gives me a plant that I can take cuttings from again when it begins to get big enough and try grafting again. So sometimes you'll have some starts and it will look like everything has died. That's not necessarily the case. So here are some lilac starts, and it looks pretty bad, but one of these is alive. That is this one right here. It has a new green bud, and it has a little green left on the leaf, and the stem is still pliable and green, has a green hue to it, and it's got 2 buds that are just starting down here where old leaves fell off. This one is the same variety. However, this one I don't hold out much hope for. Reason being, the tip where I broke it, it's brittle. It didn't bend. The top, the buds are not as green, and I'm not seeing any new growth. So let's pull it out and see if I'm right. Yeah, okay. So there's no root system that's starting down here. This is just a stick in the ground. But this one, I'm gonna keep it in its pot, and I'm gonna hope that some new leaves develop, because if they do, then this will be a lilac plant. Taking cuttings is so great, and there's so much joy in seeing a little bit of branch become a brand new plant. That's been one of my favorite learning curves on this journey. So hopefully this video helped you, and you can start to learn to do the same. Thanks for joining us on this part of our farmstead's journey. See you next time.